Welcome to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. I'm Alicia J with Ashley Nicole Moss.
Hello, hello. Happy
Good to be
Sunday,
back together.
everyone.
Yes, happy Sunday. And we're live. We're live on YouTube. Really excited to talk about this final between Team USA and France. Woo, child. But
Insane. Back
very
to back
insane.
insane games versus France. Honestly, we'll dive into it in more depth, but just it's crazy that we got the same matchup for men and women, and both the games were just absolutely mind boggling. So,
Absolutely mind-boggling, but we're definitely going to get into talking all about it. But first, definitely hit that subscribe button because, we're on every week. We're on multiple times a week at this point, and we want to make sure that we are tuned in with you and you're tuned in with us. So hit that subscribe button. We have a whole bunch of ways to keep in contact with us, from our socials to just the app We Need to Talk social. You'll see everything right here below. And we also want to hear your comments. We love having these conversations and we love having them with you. So definitely comment below. And we're all going to be in this conversation together, as always.
and if you don't want to watch us, that's okay. We get it. People are busy, they're moving around. It's summertime, people are traveling, but you don't want to miss a minute of the show. We got you covered with that as well, because this QR code right here, you can scan this and we will pop up wherever you get your podcast. We're available on Spotify, we're available on Apple Podcasts. So we have got you covered from all bases. Do not forget to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell another friend about what we have going on. Yes, the Olympics have come and gone. We'll do our recap show tomorrow, but there's still a lot more women's sports to dive into. If you can believe it, the WNBA season resumes in 2 days. So it's going to be a quick turnaround for all of the ladies who have just secured the gold medal. But speaking of them, let's talk about it, Alicia. Gold medal
Yeah.
game came this morning. We're here. Now we're on the other side of it.
Yeah, so it wasn't the game that a lot of people thought it was going to be. Obviously, with the dominance that the Team USA women's team has had, a lot of people just thought that we were going to come in and handle this game. I did not. This is kind of more towards the game I thought we would have because, listen, you're playing France at it, like in France, literally in Paris, and you're playing for your country. These players definitely committed to staying off WNBA rosters to make sure that they were prepared and ready for this particular game, being in this gold medal game.
Mm-hmm.
And they left it all out on the floor. France did. They didn't end up winning the gold. We did, which is amazing and great. Go Team USA. We're 61-0. Breaking every single Olympic record you could think of with that win. But Ashley, when watching this game, what were your thoughts initially, even when it started? What did you think about this game?
I was doing some research on the French national team, so I wasn't too surprised at the way that they came out. They're an extremely well constructed defensive team, and they have great shooters. I think that sometimes we get so focused on our team and how well they're doing, as we should, that we kind of just disregard the competition. So going into this gold medal game, especially after what we saw yesterday and having to do research for the men's side as well, I was like, let me just dive into the French national teams on both sides. Like I said, great defensive team. I think you saw that early on. Very low scoring game from all four quarters, but just their ability to take out, especially in that first half, some of the most premier aspects and players on Team USA responsible for a lot of their successes, not only, when we talk about the Olympics, but also when we just look at the WNBA landscape, the top players, being able to remove them from the game and even the playing field a little bit was really what I feel like was the biggest factor for why France was able to keep it so close. They were making it hard for Team USA to get shots that they normally can make with their eyes closed. Just the way that they were just attacking defensively was absolutely phenomenal. And again, they have shooters, France does. Gabby Williams being one of them. I know we'll talk about that shot that I know is going to haunt her for at least a year. But yeah, I was just very impressed by France's defense and making it hard for them to make shots that they can make in their sleep. That was a huge, huge advantage for them very early on in the game.
Yeah, and there was just a comment that was up that said, we need to give France props for their
Yeah, great team.
defense. And to be honest, it's not very surprising if you look at them as a team. They're a really great defensive team, really, if you look at it with France. So
Yes.
that's definitely something that, coming into it, we knew. But I just have to give it up for the players that came in and the key players of this game. Obviously, Asia Wilson. I mean, she dug deep and got it done as she always does. You could tell that she was a bit fatigued in that first quarter as well. The whole team just kind of looked a little out of sorts to me. I don't want to blame the point margin on that at all, because France, we got to give them their props for what they did. But definitely there was a little fatigue set in, especially with Asia. I was like a little worried in that first quarter that she was just too tired, because she's one of the players, her and Stewie, that have really had to carry a lot of the team on their back, which is something we're going to talk about with the whole coaching later on with Cheryl Reeve. But some key players that came in, I mean, obviously Kelsey Plum, but Kahleah Copper, we got to give her, I mean, Asia Wilson said, and I'm gonna quote it, Mom. I just got to say it the way she said it. But she said that she was that bitch today. She said straight up, like, it's Ka. Ka did that, and she did. Dang, now I feel bad. Like, my mom is really gonna talk to me later about saying that out loud. But literally, like, you know how you just get a little fearful when you say something like that, even when they're not in the room. That's how I feel right now. But she wasn't wrong. She was not lying. Ka made the difference in this game. But then you also have to look at Nafisa Collier. She came in, has some really key minutes. Alyssa Thomas, and even though we did not win by a huge margin, I hope in the future that our team's depth is like that. I want more of the whole Olympic games to be where it's not just kind of on the shoulders of one or two players, two specifically, I would say, in Asia and Stewie, but you need to have more of a balance, a more of a depth, more people that you can rely on the whole time, so that you don't have that fatigue moment. I think it would make a huge difference in this last game if that wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, I think also fatigue comes just into play with how the W season is just kind of set up, right? Unlike the men who, unless you're Jason Tatum, Derek White, who just came off of the NBA finals, your season, you've been not playing basketball for at least a few months at this point. You would think, April roughly is the time frame, May, depending on how far you go. So you've had at least a month and a half before training camp in Vegas started, right?
Mhm.
When you talk about the WNBA, their season ended, went on hiatus rather. Then it was the All-Star weekend, and then it was straight into whatever practices you can squeeze in before exhibition games. That's a very quick turnaround, and anybody would get fatigued eventually down the stretch when you start talking about eventually you start running on fumes. So it's not even, I think that if they were given a break in between, just like the men were, I would be willing to bet, yes, of course, you still get fatigue just because of the pace of the games and how quickly, the turnaround is. And then you have jet lag and you're not in the comforts of your own home and your own nutritionist and your own routine. So fatigue would always be there. But I think it's magnified, or it's multiplied rather, because of how quickly that turnaround is. I mean, don't even think about just the sequence of events. You also have to incorporate the travel to those different events. I mean, you're traveling during the season, you're traveling to Phoenix. From Phoenix, you're traveling to London for whatever exhibition games you can squeeze in. From London, you're traveling to Paris. From Paris, you're traveling to Lille. Then from Lille, you're traveling back. I mean, it's a lot. So I think that fatigue, is just multiplied for the women's side because of what their schedule looks like leading up to the Olympics every 4 years.
Yeah, and that's proven in the fact that France was like, hey, if you really want to be serious about this Olympic run, please don't go and play in the WNBA. You got to be committed to this, because it does play a part in it. It does play a part. And even more, like, I don't want to rehash this argument, but I'm actually really happy that Caitlin Clark, they were going back and forth with her, but like or even Angel Reese or any rookie for that matter was not in the Olympics this year, because I feel like it would really be detrimental to the rest of their WNBA season and really their careers. You can't get burnt out like that. You know, these players that are on the team, they're kind of used to this cadence of going from thing to thing to thing. But when you think about those players, those rookie players, like they've been going nonstop from the college season and everything. And I don't know. I was just thinking that it was probably a good experience for them to be able to catch up a little bit, because
Yeah, I
just for
mean,
that simple fact.
when we
But
talk about turnaround as well, think about the rookies turnaround. I mean, they go from their collegiate careers, some of them went
yeah,
very deep into the tournament. Then it was all of, the PR runs and things like that after declaring for the draft. And then it was the draft, and then it was media day, and then it was training camp, and then it was right into the WNBA season. So just like, Team USA and their crazy turnaround, the Rooks had an extremely crazy turnaround as well. Just a whirlwind of the past, 6 months, roughly 6, 7 months. And you have to think, like, for them, it's probably even more so because, like you said, they're not conditioned necessarily to understand or to have their bodies prepared for that quick turnaround as well. So there's silver linings in everything. And I mean, but when we talk about Team USA, bringing it back to, the women that just played, shout out to Diana Taurasi. I mean, 6 Olympic golds, most all time in Olympic basketball. That is huge for someone who said very early on in the Olympic run that this would be her last Olympics, and that, whatever happens, happens. She wants the gold, obviously, and to just be able to play in six is something that a lot of people don't get the honor of doing even once. So being able to do it 6 times is incredible.
yeah, absolutely incredible. I think she's actually one up on Sue Bird. They interviewed her after the game and she said drinks on DT for surpassing that. So definitely amazing to see that. And I know, coming into this, she said it was going to be her last. And so it's amazing to go out on gold. She's one of the players that, she's done everything. She's done everything. You can't be mad at your career where you're not hung up on anything that you didn't do, because she's literally done it all. And I could also say, looking at Brittany Griner, crying in the medal ceremony, what she's been through, to even get to this point, to be, I mean, I can't even imagine going through what she did, and then literally even playing in the games, right? That would take years to recover from, being in that situation. So, she's had an amazing career too. She's overcome so much, and to see her get that gold too was a special thing to see. I mean, really, all the players, it is really hard to do what they did. 61-0. They said, I think it was a stat of, and please, anyone in the comments correct me, but it was either five, I want to say it was 5 or 6 players that are on the team weren't even born when that 96 team won, that first Olympic
Yeah.
run to get to where we are today. And that is just phenomenal. So with that in mind, Ashley, is this the greatest Olympic team of all time? And I'm talking about the women's basketball team, not necessarily the team that we have right now, but is the team the greatest Olympic team of all time?
I mean, I'm split. I feel like we had this conversation on network, and you made some really, really good points about, the team that had Dawn Staley on it and all those legends. And it's hard for me to go against that team, not just because of their dominance. You spoke to that dominance on the show and just how, they just ran through every single team that they came across, and not just beat them, but just beat them down. I think that the international game in modern basketball is a lot different than it was back in the 90s. So I think that it's harder to establish. I mean, we saw this in this French game came down to Gabby Williams' foot being just too close to the 2-point line and not enough on the three. I mean, that's what it came down to. We were literally an inch away from getting silver. So or going into overtime, I should say, because that would have sent them
Yes.
to OT. So um it's hard for me to bet against that type of dominance when speaking about the 90s team, but also just because that team is why we're even having this conversation about this team, that I always give them the slight edge just because of what it did for women's basketball, what it did for the sport of basketball as a whole, what it did for women's basketball specifically in the Olympics. It's just very hard for me to. I'm not saying that this team's not as dominant. The roster, you can see it. You can see it in the games. When we talk about the overall magnitude, I mean, they walked so that this team could run, and I can't give the edge to this team because of what that team did. I just can't. It's like
Yeah.
my spirit won't let me do it. So I'm going
No,
with that squad.
I definitely can't either. I mean, I'm wearing this Cheryl Swoops from the Playa Society shirt for a reason because I needed the vibes of that team to come through
Yeah.
today. But I'm speaking to the overall dominance of the team in the Olympics. If you look at the Olympic teams, the greatest dominance of all time of any other teams, like I think that this team has been the most dominant out of any sport. 1996 to now. I think it has definitely, you could say that it is overall and the most dominant Olympic team, in addition to that 1996 team being dominant. I'm saying like the actual overall uh, women's national team of basketball is the
Mhm.
most dominant in team in the Olympics of all time. Would you say that
Um,
as a whole, like what we've done as a whole?
I would say that. I would say
Yeah.
that. Yeah. I would
Yeah.
say that for sure.
Yeah, I don't think anyone, when you have a streak like that, when you literally had the first team that started it
Yeah.
uh, go, what was it, 60-0, because they had a world tour beforehand, and then literally we haven't lost since. I don't think any other sport in the
Yeah.
Olympics, any other team or anything can touch that. There's just absolutely no way. Because I can't even think of a team that I would say would even be close. Like,
No,
so
I
I don't even
mean,
think there's an argument.
yeah, and I think that again, I know we're gonna go ahead and highlight some of these players in just a second, but just to wrap up this conversation, I think it's no knock to what we saw in this Olympics, what we saw in the Olympics prior. Um,
No,
but I just think that when you start talking about impact and legacy and dominance, I just think there's so many different tiers to that conversation. And I don't think that you can ignore a team that really hit every single one of those tiers. I mean, we're talking international dominance, we're talking domestic dominance, we're talking historic dominance, dominance, we're talking just the overall blueprint. So I don't know. It's no knock to what we just saw happen. No knock to that team, but it's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for me. But
yeah,
what's not hard for me is to highlight some of these players from Team USA because they went ahead. In case you missed it, you missed a good one. 8 straight gold after beating France in a thriller that game came down to inches, just inches when we start talking about that 2 point line. A lot of players, I mean, Brianna Stewart, I feel like was leading in the MVP race for a while when we're talking about the Olympics. So I know they will be announcing rather who the overall MVP was. LeBron won it for the guys. We're going to see who wins it for the women. If it's not been announced already, we'll let Emma go ahead and let us know. But there were some surprising performances for Team USA, some not surprising performances. We know the usual suspects, they do what they normally do. But who for you was the biggest standout? Not really talking about, who won, not really talking about who did what they normally do night in and night out in the WNBA, but for you, who was somebody you sat back and said, "Oh,
well,
okay."
okay, I'll give you that, but Emma did just tell us that Asia Wilson was named MVP, and it's like, how could you not, right? Looking at what she did in this tournament, she was fantastic on every level. She want to talk about somebody who left it all out on the court. She certainly did. At the end of the game, Dawn Staley actually said, "At the end of the day, we had Asia Wilson, and they didn't." And I cannot agree with her more on that. Also, I don't know if I just have to put this little in there. Asia Wilson used to have Olympic birthday parties. Like she used to have Olympic themed birthday parties back in the day when she was a kid. And it's like such an amazing thing to see her now, like dominating in her sport at the Olympics. It's like, that was just destined to happen, right? When you're having Olympic themed birthday parties, I wouldn't even think of that when I was a
Well,
kid.
I had pop
Um,
star birthdays and I didn't become a pop star. So
Listen, I mean, I was at that Chuck E. Cheese, and I'm glad I didn't become a huge rat. So we'll just like, thank the Lord. But
that went
but
so left.
I know, I'm sorry. Just y'all, it happens with us. We just bear with us. But
Olympics, pop star, rat. Got
yeah,
it.
I mean that was the truth.
Was he a
So
rat or was he a mouse? I don't know.
I don't.
Whatever.
He was scary though. Actually, looking back at it, I'm like, why wasn't
Real
I
talk.
scared?
My first birthday was at Chuck E. Cheese, and my mom said when those little characters started singing on the stage, I started hysterical crying, and the party was over.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt.
The
Without a
banjo
doubt.
little, yeah, I'm cool.
Yeah, I'm cool too. I'll never have one for my future child there, I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
But,
it's cool.
going back to this comment that we just had, we would not win the game without, Kelsey and Ka. Absolutely true. They came in at very instrumental times, and they got us back up, not even with just points, but just with energy, right?
Yeah,
Kahleah Copper was everywhere, offense, defense. She was out there in every facet of the game, just doing what needed to be done. And I couldn't agree more with that comment. And I'm sorry I did not see your name, but thank you for the comment. I could not agree more that without Kahleah Copper, we would not have won that game. I'm sorry. It is just the truth. And
yeah.
I
I'm
actually
looking at her
said,
stats now as you're talking about it.
yeah, and I actually said, and I have to apologize and take it all the way back in our live show on Friday on CBS Sports Network, that I could see her possibly in the future as being one of the spots that they may be looking at, for a different person in the future. But today she solidified that, like, no, this is where I should be. I should be on this Olympic team. And not only that, we have gold because of a lot of the things that I did today. And that is no doubt. Kahleah Copper, for sure. And I do agree with Kelsey as well. That was one thing, and I said this a little bit earlier, that I think we needed throughout the whole tournament was more of that balance of players
Yeah,
coming in and getting it done. I mean, Nafisa Collier had huge moments. AT came in there and she did what AT needed to do with her physicality. They were all really instrumental parts of changing kind of where that game was going, because there were moments where France could have taken off with it if we
yeah.
didn't get those moments, those spurts of energy, points, defense, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. I mean, we're gonna talk about Cheryl Reeve in a second, but there were certain times where like you were screaming at your TV to make a lineup change, to make an adjustment, just because what was on the floor was not working. Like we said earlier to open up the show, France's tactic defensively was to take out your usual suspects. And when you do that, depth is so important because then you have to go ahead and rely on the unusual suspects to step up in their absence. So the fact that that was not being adjusted or being reflected earlier on in the rotations was very frustrating to watch. It's like you're screaming again at your television, like, make a change, make a change. Eventually that change happened, and you saw what, especially I want to say, when Kelsey Plum and that unit was on the floor, really kind of started that trajectory a little bit. And then it was just a domino effect after that. But it was unfortunate. It took a while to get there, but we got there. That's okay. I mean, let's dive into that. Let's talk about Cheryl Reeve and those rotations or lack thereof, or the adjustments and lack thereof. I mean,
That's definitely been something that people have been saying the entire Olympics. Like, what are you doing, Cheryl?
yeah,
And I definitely agree. It is frustrating watching it. It's frustrating when you're seeing like players like Jewel Lloyd not getting any type of minutes. You're just like, what is going on? Like, I mean, she got a little bit here and there, but she's a fantastic player that could have helped in a lot of different ways. And I don't feel like she was used. Today was probably the best kind of rotation that we kind of saw from her, but it was still late, in my
hmm
opinion.
hmm
And
no, it was.
also
It was
it
great.
was forced. Like she was forced to kind of do that because she needed a change in there so desperately, or else we were going to lose. I mean, we just won by by a small margin. So one thing I do think we need to change before this next Olympics is the coach, period.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I think we do. We have too much talent, and even the talent on the team that I don't think was used maybe all the way effectively with the balance and everything that we've been talking about for the entirety of the Olympic run. But I just think that we have a better coach out there that can bring out more of the talent and the depth that we do have that we didn't necessarily see consistently. Um, I personally, I don't know if this is even possible. I'm gonna put it out there and respond to me in the comments. But can we get Dawn back? Can we get her back?
Oh,
Can we
Dawn's
get
busy.
Dawn Staley?
Dawn is busy living her life and traveling and being a spectator and
Well, she got enough of it. Can we get her back now? I need
Alicia
me.
said, okay, the fun's over.
Yes, I'm glad she got to enjoy her life. Live your best life, Dawn. But is it possible for a college coach to do that? Is it even better, really? Because we, like, as a WNBA
I mean,
coach,
Coach K did it
yeah. So
for the
I'm just
men.
saying, I feel like I want to revisit Dawn.
I
I
mean,
do.
listen, I do think we also have Sabrina Ionescu, obviously fewer than 10 minutes in a quarter and semifinal games, which is crazy. Chelsea Gray started but was pulled, finished the game with 4 assists, 1 rebound. Um, it's interesting, right? And again, in the Olympics, you can't play everybody the same amount of time. FIBA
No,
games, the quarters are shorter, the game goes by faster. We get that. We were having this conversation on the men's side, screaming at Steve Kerr in some games to play Jason Tatum. And it just, he would play him in games that he wasn't a good matchup in, wouldn't play him in games that he was a good matchup in. And I think that the same can be said, about what we saw for the women's. I think that again, you're gonna play certain people constantly and consistently. They're the anchors of the team, but those intangibles, I want to call them, you plug those in when needed. You plug those in as the game unfolds. And there are some coaches in the NBA who are really good at this. Eric Spoelstra's first that comes to mind. I think he's one of the best in-game adjusters. And there are some coaches, and I think Cheryl Reeve may be one of these coaches who go into a game with a specific game plan. And that's the game plan I'm sticking to. And this is the game plan I'm going to force to work regardless of what happens on the court. And then there are some coaches who are better suited to go in with a game plan and then see how the game is unfolding and say, all right, let me switch this out, let me adjust this, you go here. And I just don't know if she's that type of coach, and that's okay. Not everybody's the same style coach. I think there are some WNBA coaches, there are some Olympic coaches, and I say the same when we talk about the NBA versus FIBA as well. There are FIBA coaches and there are NBA coaches. The crossover doesn't always work. And I don't know if the crossover works with Cheryl Reeve. And I think that's okay to say.
no, I think that's okay to say, and I think it's necessary, right? If you want to continue this dominance, there are changes that need to be made to make sure that we see that the international play is. I'm not saying it's catching up to us quickly, but it's definitely catching up to us in a lot of different ways, as
Yeah.
it should. There's a lot of great players internationally. We see that within the WNBA and even NBA, like how international players are all up and through there. We're having a lot of international players on our
Yeah.
teams, and that's for a reason because they're really good and international play is increasing. It's getting better,
Absolutely.
it's strengthening day by day. And so with that said, we need to always make adjustments, always look for the ways that we can get better. And I really think that a coaching change needs to be made in order to do that.
Well, I mean, look, coaching changes may come, roster changes will definitely come. And I'm talking about 2028. I know everybody was on Twitter, in the event that Team USA lost to France. We didn't. So everyone take a
No,
breather. And one of the trending topics on Twitter was Caitlin Clark,
of
who
course.
I'm 99.9% sure will be on the roster for 2028, along with Angel Reese. When we look towards 2028, I mean, we have the opportunity to do something that we haven't done since the 90s, and that is be the first host city, or once again be the host city, and this time will be country because North America, USA as a whole, rather, to win the gold in basketball and other sports as well. So we have the opportunity to run that back in 2028. What are you looking forward to most specifically about women's basketball heading into the Los Angeles Olympics?
I'm just really excited about the talent that we have, right? If
Mhm.
you look at the team that we have right now, obviously talented on every level, and the talent that we have that isn't even on the team, let's just, since we're talking about Caitlin and Angel, that is exciting to me because number one, they're going to be what, 4 years better, 3.5, whatever
Yeah,
the math
three
is.
and a
They're
half.
going to,
Yeah, yeah, 4 years
yeah,
round.
they're going to be years better. Let's say that.
Paige,
Yeah,
Juju,
Paige, Juju, all of them,
Cameron.
when you think, because Cameron is on her way back and I'm so excited.
Mhm,
But when you look at those players and how talented they already are and how exciting they already are and how much better they will be by that time, I cannot wait to see that team. That team is going to have the depth that we're talking about. It's going to be an exciting team to watch. It's going to be a team that I believe will continue the dominance of the U.S. with some,
mhm,
little bit of tweaks here and there. I think it's going to take, like I said, a special coach to coach that team as well with all of that different talent to be able to utilize all of that different talent in the way that it should be utilized. Definitely looking at a coaching change for that. But with those players, there's years upon years upon years that they're going to be playing on teams.
mhm.
So I'm excited about that too, because I don't see an end to our talent pool, which
It's
is
also
fantastic.
It's also interesting too because, just like the conversation that is being had on the men's side when we talk about Braun and Steph and KD and how it's a very real possibility that this is the last time we've seen all of them run it in the Olympics together
Mhm.
because of their age. I mean, when we look at the roster right now, a lot of these women will be in their early 30s come 2028. And you start having that conversation as well because again, Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, even LeBron James. I mean, it is rare to be able to play close to 40. It's not something that happens often. That's why you have to really appreciate it when you're witnessing it in real time because a lot of players don't see that kind of longevity. And it's not because they're not good, it's just because Father Time is undefeated. And it's amazing to see some people beat Father Time, but I mean, 6 Olympics is unheard of, which is why it's so historic. And you have to wonder, looking at this roster, if 2028 would be the last time we'd see a lot of those names, because then you think the next Olympics 4 years later, a lot of those women will be closer to 40 than they would be 30. So you would kind of be in the same situation where you are now, where a lot of those top premier players, it might be our last time to see them in the Olympics, and it would be
Mhm.
the passing of the torch as well.
Yeah, and when you think about that length of time, we usually see progression in years, in seasons, and this is like a 4 years that we're looking at, so a lot can change and a lot can happen. But RC right here said Cam Brink and Caitlin are probably taking BG and Chelsea spots. Maybe Rakia takes DT's spot. Angel Reese should take AT's spot. Would you both agree? That is a really loaded
It's hard for me
comment.
to say because 22
It's
is
hard.
it's 4 years away. A lot, like you said, a lot can happen in 4 years, good and bad. Um, I do think though that when we start talking about roster spots, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a lot of the names on the roster that we saw
A-
this time around, just
Agreed.
because you'll have such a younger, more experienced more experience in terms of where they are right now as rookies, talent pool to pull from. And I think the Olympics, just like organizations, just like franchises, they relish in experience, but they also prepare themselves for the future at the exact same time. And I think that the committee is going to want some level of Olympic experience and all that comes with it. But they're also going to want to start preparing Team USA for the next wave. And in order to do that, you have to trim a lot of the older players and fill their spots with. So what that comment said is probably not unlikely. I just don't know specifically who would be the plug and play, but we will possibly see this roster change. I'd be willing to bet by 50%.
Absolutely. And when you look at the rookie class that came in, they were one of the most WNBA ready rookie classes that we've had in a long time. Not to say that they weren't great rookie classes in
Right.
the past, but the most WNBA ready rookie class of all time. And also what they've done to the sport, I can definitely see them. I mean, in 4 years, can you even imagine like how good that those players that were named in that comment will be? So I would not
Yeah.
be shocked or surprised either.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be fun to watch, to prepare for. Um, the Olympics have come to an end. I
I
feel like
know. Yeah.
we've been talking about this for weeks. We've been on full throttle, all systems a go for the past 15 days and change. Closing ceremonies are tonight. Listen, we went in and did what we were supposed to do from a multitude of different angles. Monday, tomorrow, we will have our official Olympic recap show. So don't worry if we didn't have a chance to talk about your favorite sport on this pod, just because this one was specifically about Team USA securing the gold in the gold medal game against France. We're recapping all things Olympics tomorrow. If you want to catch up with anything that we've already done, because it's been a lot, these are
Yes.
the social channels right here. We need to talk. Alicia's, myself. We're on it. Myself. That's not a word. Myselves. I think. I don't know.
It
Whatever.
can be a
Ignore
word
that.
on this Sunday. It can be a
I made
word.
the word up. We're gonna
Yeah.
make that up today. We're on Instagram, X, and TikTok. And also, if you want to listen to us, you can do that as well by scanning this QR code. We're on Spotify and Apple, and you can go ahead and pass that along to a friend who passes it along to another friend, because just because the Olympics are over doesn't mean that women's sports comes to an end. But this special edition podcast has officially come to an end. From myself, from Alicia, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.
We'll see you tomorrow.